Billboards around this great city have proclaimed this to be Austin's biggest weekend ever. And now, from the Circuit of the Americas, it is time for the main event. This is Formula One, and it's race day in America. F1 returns with a 54-point gap in the Drivers' Championship in the state where they claim everything is bigger. This is a Grand Prix of huge consequence for the World Championship. It's 5.5 kilometers, 3.4 miles, 56 laps on the board for today, around the 20 turns with an elevation climb of 30 meters. Defining meters for who takes home the largest trophy. The battle for victory is less than 5 minutes away. It's the C4, the C3 and the C2 tyres available for the drivers in the field. When you use the Pirelli rubber is going to be so important on a day that just feels intense from the off. This is how they line up for the 19th Grand Prix of the year. George Russell, after that big crash in qualifying, starts from the pit lane. Liam Lawson has a 60-place penalty, but starts in 19th. Classic Formula One, that. Zhou Guanyu dropped down again, changing a component. Lewis Hamilton had his worst ever qualifying day around this circuit. Goes from P17. Valtteri Bottas is a former winner around here. Franco Colapinto is out in Q1 for the first time since his debut. Alex Albon is 14th on the grid, next to Lance Stroll. We move to 12th position. It's occupied by Esteban Ocon in the Alpine. Without the updates, Nico Hülkenberg does have updates on his Haas. Lock-up at turn 1 cost him in qualifying. Yuki Tsunoda in 10th place. Sergio Perez did not have a legal time in the session, starts in P9. Kevin Magnussen, really impressive here, chasing Haas's best ever result in a Grand Prix. If he finishes in 8th, he'll do it. Fernando Alonso is next to him as well, his best start here since 2017. Best start of the season for Pierre Gasly. Oscar Piastri is alongside him, and then it is Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Ferrari, a package that are causing so much speculation. What can they do from the second row of the grid? And for the 6th time this season, Max Verstappen shares the front row with Lando Norris, who scores his 7th Formula One career pole position. And it is going to be such an interesting run to turn 1. Welcome to the commentary box. I'm Alex Jakes. James Hinchcliffe, this is going to be some Grand Prix.
It really is. I mean, we had such a nice preview of it in the sprint. A lot of things we weren't expecting to happen, and I think even more questions heading into the Grand Prix today. Parc Fermé rules done. You can take the lessons learned from the sprint race, apply some changes to those cars. So cars that were strong might not be as strong. Cars that were weak might be better.
Damn, this is far back.
That's Lewis Hamilton not loving where he's starting this Grand Prix. And the 7-time world champion, especially around here, Hinch, just doesn't have anything like that type of performance on a qualifying day. On the upside, nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose, a lot to gain. And look, we know Lewis Hamilton. He's a champion of champions. He loves a challenge. He loves a race from the back. And he's got such an exemplary record here at COTA. He knows how to get around this place. He knows how to get it done. We saw that passes were possible in the sprint race yesterday. Smart tire strategy is going to be a big part of it. I know it's not where he wants to be, but I still think if they got some of those setup changes right on the Mercedes for when it comes to race pace, again, the degradation yesterday wasn't the best, he can move up quite a bit and still find himself in the points.
You are looking at the only driver to win a race from pole position in the last 10. His name, Lando Norris. Yesterday, against expectation, as his rival for the World Championship, extends his neck and looks across to where he is. Verstappen went very, very defensive yesterday, maybe overly defensive into turn number 1. If it's in his head to stop it happening, it will definitely be in his head to lunge to the apex. It's so wide at turn 1, James.
It is. It's so inviting for drivers on the start. There's kind of the normal width of the front straightaway. Then once you get past pit out, the track actually extends quite a bit drivers left and just gives you that little bit more pavement to have an option to go try to make a bold move into turn 1.
The cars are onto their formation lap. Over 400,000 people have made their way into this circuit, which has been hosting Formula One for many years now. This is the 12th time that Formula One has hosted a Grand Prix weekend. And the medium tyre is the tyre of choice for everyone in the field until you get to Lance Stroll in 13th. Colapinto's on the hard, and crucially, both Mercedes are. We're expecting a two-stop today.
We are, and you can see from those possible tire strategies, those are the two most ideal, all of them starting on the medium. So the drivers that are starting on the hards, they have to do something different. If you're outside the top 10, you need to make up a little bit of ground there. And if you're just doing the same as the cars in front of you, chances are you're gonna get beat. So you've got to think outside the box, start on that hard, be very defensive on the start. With that harder compound, it's gonna be hard to get those things up to temperature, up to grip. But if you can get through that first lap or two, find your rhythm, you can work on the overcut, try to just play the tire strategy a little bit differently.
It's going to be fascinating to see which way there is to go, but let's reduce down the stakes. Let's lay it all on the line for you. Ferrari have not updated their car, but they know the car, and they look good on the medium tyre. Earlier in the weekend, they start this race. But the top two drivers in the Formula One World Championship are Max Verstappen, the leader by 54 points, and Lando Norris, trying to overturn the largest points deficit in the entire history of the World Championship, started in 1950. That is where we are starting the Grand Prix today. Couple of points gained by Max Verstappen by winning the sprint race last time.
Still quite a few points up for grabs. We have this Grand Prix, 5 more, including 2 more sprint races. So a heap of points on the board, and Norris has just been on such a run. It does look like Verstappen's getting his groove back, that RB20 giving him a lot more confidence. And we really saw it from the first lap of first practice, but this man here is the one who got it done in qualifying, which is when it counted. Margins so tight, you have to be absolutely picture perfect on a qualifying lap. Lando was the only one that got it done on the only run they were given in Q3 due to Russell's crash, but now all pressure is on for this start. It is a new surface, track's been repaved. That's going to give them a different level of grip from what they're used to off the line here, Alex.
That is going to be something they're going to have to factor in as we go through. McLaren trying to win this race for the first time since Lewis Hamilton was piloting the car around here. That is George Russell leaving the garage. He will start this race when he gets the green light after all the cars in the field have passed him by. 19 on the grid, 1 in the pit lane. Norris in the orange McLaren next to the navy Red Bull of Max Verstappen. A first turn that always provides drama. A first turn that yesterday Lando Norris used the inside line to improve a couple of places. These are the stirring moments. This is where we see the drivers' reactions. This is the moment that could be defining. Final car slotting into position. George Russell will be in the pit lane. The track temperature is 46 degrees. The air temperature is 27. We wait for the green flag at the back of the field. Liam Lawson back into Formula One, lines up in 19th position. Here come the lights in Austin. And the US Grand Prix is underway. Max Verstappen's going to give himself an opportunity into turn number 1, but Lando Norris is chopping across. There's the late lunge that Max Verstappen was looking for, but he sends Lando Norris wide, and through goes the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. First and second battling each other, and they open the door for the driver in the Scarlet car. He roars through, up 3 places to take the lead of this one, past his teammate, past the top 2 in the battle for the World Championship. Verstappen is in second, Sainz is in third, and Norris, our pole sitter, is down to P4.
How many times have we seen those two go wheel to wheel in a corner and have it go a little bit wrong for one or both? It was a great jump off the line from Leclerc anyway. I think he cleared Sainz, and then taking advantage of that opportunity presented by Verstappen, pushing Norris all the way out as we see them jockeying for position now out of turn 11 down this long back straight. Look at Lewis Hamilton already up a bunch of spots.
Lewis Hamilton is up 5 places in 12th position. Carlos Sainz, does he go super brave? The answer is yes, and now it's Verstappen off the road. He's been barged out of the way. Sainz feathers back the throttle because he knows he can't overtake him, having caused that action. But now, at his favourite opportunity of all of them around the circuit, he's tried to go by to turn 15, all the while knowing that he can't do it too quickly because Verstappen would be complaining. All action start to this one in Austin.
I'll tell you what, trying to go on the outside of Max Verstappen rarely ends well for the driver on the outside. He can make that car very wide on an exit. Sainz being very methodical there, backing out of it. But man, what a lunge into 12. We've seen this a lot in the sprint race from Carlos. He is just on a different level of aggression this weekend, and it is phenomenal to see.
Well, that lunge did come in the 215-meter run to turn number 1. It has completely scrambled the order at the head of the field. Charles Leclerc climbs up from 4th on the grid to the lead in the first 4 miles of this contest. Max Verstappen in 2nd place, under pressure from Carlos Sainz, who has looked the better of the 2 Ferrari drivers so far this weekend. And our pole sitter doesn't lead the first lap again. Lando Norris budged out of the way, down to 4th position. Then it's Piastri, Gasly maintaining 6th, Magnussen in 7th. He's up a place. Tsunoda climbed 2 positions to get to 8th. Your top 10 is completed by Perez, and 3 places down, Fernando Alonso.
What a start. And you mentioned it, Carlos Sainz kind of has been the better Ferrari so far this weekend, and he knows it. He's looking at his teammate in the lead. He wants so desperately to get around Verstappen so he can take the fight to Leclerc, because he believes he's the better Ferrari right now. And that track position will put him in a great position to try to fight for. This is exactly where we saw him make all the moves yesterday, heading into turn 15.
He is soaring at the back of the world champion. It was the inside of 15 yesterday, and Verstappen knew it. Carlos Sainz on the attack, trying to make it a Ferrari 1-2. The Red Bull has been revised. There is a new front wing on the McLaren of Lando Norris, but it's the Ferraris with the same package that they raced in Monza, in Baku, and in Singapore, who are putting the pressure on early on. It is a long way to go. They don't call it a Grand Prix for nothing. Lap 3, so well poised at the moment. Charles Leclerc, the leader of the race, by 1.3 seconds.
Yellow flag in sector 3. Oh, big lockup!
Off the road goes Lewis Hamilton, but our race leader locked up his tyre. Lewis Hamilton's miserable weekend continues, but did Charles Leclerc lose more than a couple of tenths of a second, or does Max Verstappen have an opportunity? Lewis Hamilton out of the US Grand Prix. Leclerc maintains the lead, but there was a lock-up into turn number 1, and Hamilton at the corner where his teammate crashed in qualifying is off as well. What a miserable time for the Mercedes driver.
It was such a great start. He was up to P12, highest runner on the hard tire, the highest runner on that sort of alternate tire strategy. Such a strong opening segment for him. And now beached in the gravel, you expect maybe a VSC coming out here to retrieve that car. And you can see right now the advantage, full safety car coming out.
The safety car is finally deployed. For the first time in 10 races, it has been such a long run without the safety car out on circuit, and the crowd are cheering because Lewis Hamilton is all right and out of the car, but it has been a circuit he has adored. He won 5 of the first 6 Grand Prix held here, and he's always finished in the top 4. Last year, came across the line in 2nd and was disqualified, and here, as they cheer for him, he's found himself off the road in the early stages, and the body language says it all. Day over early.
It's such a rare mistake from Lewis. I mean, I'm curious to see if there was help in any way, but you know, that's not a corner you get passed on, or you are usually making pass attempts, so we'll have to see. But just such a rare thing for him to make a mistake as we take a look back at the race start.
Okay, let's go back to the start of the Grand Prix. Lando Norris got a decent launch, but we wondered whether Max Verstappen was going to make that lunge come what may. Here was the answer.
I mean, you never really have to wonder with Max, do you? He's going for it, but it was that strong start from Leclerc that got him on the inside of Carlos going in to turn 1. You see the reaction time there. It was actually a slower reaction from Leclerc, but he just had a great launch.
Oh, Gasly and Piastri made contact into the sweepers. They were very lucky there.
And that was the original yellow flag. Ocon getting spun around there. A little bit of damage. Let's see on board now from the man that took the lead. 4th to 1st in 1 corner.
Off the line. Good launch, got an opportunity. The first turn here designed for overtaking. He knows at this stage where to position the car. Past his teammate, past the top 2 in the World Championship. Race lead for Charles Leclerc.
What was so heads up from that is he had Carlos Sainz right beside him, so even when he cut to the inside, he knew Carlos was close enough. He had to leave a car width between himself and the 2 cars going off track, so very aware as we see what happened here with Ocon. The Williams just had Hamilton making a move up the inside, Albon getting into the side of Ocon, and around he goes.
Not the way that he wanted to start his 100th Grand Prix, Alex Albon. This is on board with Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, given a car's width, taking it.
There's a bad statistic about the pole sitter here at COTA. 5 of the last 6 years, they haven't led the first lap. And it's almost a disadvantage, and here's why. As a driver, as we see that contact almost between the two behind, this is an almost flat-out section of S's. Well, let's quickly look here at what happened to Lewis Hamilton.
We're heading to turn 19 of the circuit. Let's listen in.
Almost identical to what happened to George Russell. Doesn't make it to the barriers because you're going much slower in the race.
Yeah, sorry guys.
He had it moving, but just got beached there. Oh yeah, the rear stepping out, almost exactly the same point as what we saw with George Russell in qualifying.
He's had great days around this circuit, a lot of them. He's won world championships around this circuit in the past, but this is a weekend to forget for the 7-time world champion.
It was almost self-fulfilling prophecy after qualifying when he said he's already looking forward to next week, as if he forgot there was still a Grand Prix to run. And we talked about that long run of safety car free races. Singapore, for the first time in its history, not having one. Was it 9 consecutive races without a safety car?
We got to the end of that Grand Prix, we're looking around in the commentary box going, is that it? Because we're expecting the full 2 hours and a bit more that you sometimes get at Singapore, but no safety car there. But we have one today after Lewis Hamilton spun at the same corner of his teammate, didn't go as far into the barrier. Let's hear from Lando Norris.
And Lando, we've reported the incident in turn 1. Any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly pushed me out. He had no intent to make the corner. Even he ran off the track, so I just had to avoid crashing into him, or him crashing into me, but yeah.
Fair shout. I mean, you know, Max didn't make the corner. He was 4 wheels off the track as well. I know they tend to be a little bit more lenient when it's the first corner of the first lap, but I think back to Vegas last year, similar situation with Charles Leclerc on the outside of Max Verstappen, and he did get that penalty. So we'll be curious to see what happens. But just going back to that thought on the pole sitter here, you're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, as we check in with Norris again.
Yeah, the thing is, he overtook me by going in so hard that he went off the track, same as Budapest. Just identical.
Understood.
Yeah, we said how many times have we seen those two go into a corner side by side and something like that happen. But you could defend as the pole sitter all the way to driver's left, but then that just allows the person in second, whether you started second or not, to go all the way wide and swing around the outside. You try to leave a little bit in, and the person behind can dive to the inside and sort of just commit to that dive bomb as we ride on board now with Max to see it.
Second on the grid.
Ooh. Just maybe inside track limits, but it was close.
This was a late lunge. Verstappen off the road. Crucially, so was Sainz, and it meant that Sainz could not keep his foot flat. He made sure, as we go on board, that Verstappen stayed ahead. Good effort, though, on the opening lap.
I just love this aggression from Carlos, and now safety car coming in. Leclerc in control of the field.
You're watching the US Grand Prix, and we're about to have a safety car restart, something that the Formula One field haven't had in a while. Max Verstappen looking to win his first Grand Prix since the Spanish Grand Prix back in June. Charles Leclerc looking for a 3rd triumph of the season as the others are scrapping amongst themselves. He's vaulted up from 4th to 1st. He is the driver who dictates when we go back to green flag racing at the Circuit of the Americas, and crucially, you cannot overtake until the start-finish line. He's going late. We're heading into turn 19 now. I feel like we've talked about turn 19 so much. We'll talk about it some more, because that is the time that Charles Leclerc chooses to take us back to conditions, and Max Verstappen's gone with his old racing rival, slightly slow through turn 20. Is there an opportunity for Verstappen to do what he did on the opening lap and dive to the inside? It was a little bit of understeer through turn 20, and it means that Charles Leclerc wasn't vulnerable through there. He maintains the lead into turn number 1. It's Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris in 4th place. The fast sweepers is where Verstappen has been devastating so far. This amazing direction change with modern Formula One machinery. But Charles Leclerc has got the restart that he needed. He's hung on to P1.
And it's these laps that are so crucial for your tire preservation. You need to make sure you're not pushing too hard, taking too much life out of the Pirellis in these first few laps of the Grand Prix when the cars are very heavy from the extra fuel. You're gonna need to make this set of mediums last. long enough to make this a doable two-stopper. And if you're too aggressive, especially in dirty air, like Max Verstappen is, like Carlos Sainz is, you're going to pay the price late in the stint. And that's the balance that these drivers have to really make at this stage of the Grand Prix. But you can see the Ferrari out front in clean air looking very comfortable. As we see some racing at the back, George Russell defending.
Plenty of racing at the back. Lance Stroll has dropped to the back of this field. There is no further investigation between Albon and Ocon, and they're racing together at the moment. Russell finds himself in 16th position, having started from the pit lane. This is the man making his 100th Grand Prix start today, but being run out of road by Esteban Ocon, and Lance Stroll takes the opportunity to go the long way round, but off the road, he's claimed that place. Either way, he's keeping his foot flat to the floor. This is racing for last. We've got battles all the way through the field.
This is exactly what we saw yesterday in the sprint, as Leclerc takes the fastest lap of the race so far. No surprise, out front in clean air, maximum downforce on that car. Every car behind him is losing a little bit more because of that dirty air in the wake of the car in front. But you see Leclerc already breaking DRS range from Verstappen, where Sainz still has enough room to get it on the straightaways and try to attack the Red Bull, as we see on board here.
We're going from front to back time and time again. This is 19th place Alex Albon, who's been shuffled to the back of this pack. George Russell in 16th. He's trying to get past Valtteri Bottas next. Bottas is trying to get past Colapinto. But it's Albon in 19th, Stroll in 18th now, Ocon in 17th position, Russell is in 16th, Hamilton is the only retirement on lap 7. And if you're wondering whether we've got any information about race control potentially looking at the significance of the first turn, the only message we've got on our screen is that Ocon and Albon, no further review. Nothing else for those running at the front of the field.
We look like Nico Hülkenberg trying to line up Fernando Alonso here down the back straight. DRS open on the brakes, easily executed there. Nico Q3 pace in that Haas. Just didn't quite get it done after a mistake in turn 1, so he's now on the charge. Does he have enough to attack Checo in the Red Bull?
We're going to find out. Hulkenberg was really distraught yesterday to see the chance of another Q3 appearance slip through his fingers, but he's made a tidy move, a significant move, as Haas looked to add to the 3 points that they scored in the sprint race in the Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc is the race leader by 1.4 seconds, and Sainz is able to run in the wheel tracks of Max Verstappen. Lando Norris, who said it was the best qualifying lap of his career yesterday, has been shuffled backwards. Track position is going to be crucial when you go for your stops. It's going to be important. We're expecting a two-stopper, or at least we were at the start of the day. There will be plenty looking at whether we go for a 1 instead. Track position is going to dictate that. It's lap 8 of 56. A dramatic start to this Grand Prix, with the top 2 drivers in the World Championship going side by side through turn number 1. Max Verstappen getting past Lando Norris, but crucially, Charles Leclerc getting past the pair of them and his teammate, and he holds the lead at the moment. As the drivers continue to discover, Hinch, what they've got underneath them with this much fuel in the car. We only ran 19 laps yesterday.
Exactly right. I mean, the cars are so different, with an extra 60 kilograms of fuel in it. Maybe even 70 kilograms of fuel to make that distance work. Your brake points are different, your cornering speeds are different, and the way the car's gonna wear the tires is different because of that extra weight. So all of these drivers are kind of learning on the fly. You would have tried to do some full fuel running in the 1 hour of practice that we had on Friday, but it's impossible to get through a proper race run and quali sims and update, getting a sense of the updates on the cars. There's so much work to do in a 1 hour session. So we see the V-Carb, V-Red Bull situation happening here.
This is on board with Liam Lawson, the driver who currently occupies 12th position. Guess who he's racing? His mate from yesterday, trying to go around the outside. My word, what commitment that is from Liam Lawson.
Not being bullied by Fernando Alonso in the slightest. As we see, is that Alonso dropping wheels? Or is
That's
that
going to be Stroll. So that was Stroll,
yeah,
heading down the order, which sparked the 4-car brawl. And he was able to get past Alex Albon, but he's being noted by race control for going off the road and gaining an advantage as he did so. If he doesn't give that place back, it's likely to be a 5-second penalty on previous precedent.
How about Liam Lawson just going toe-to-toe with Fernando Alonso, who we're showing on the screen is back in front.
Back in front, so I think Alonso was able to line him up once again, but great battling early on between the two that disagreed yesterday.
No power if you do the corner. No power. Copy, we do see no action at the moment. Keep
keep you posted.
Yeah, but costing me a lot.
I know.
Smells like fuel.
Not a sentence you ever want to say or hear in motor racing, and Sainz is dropping back from Max Verstappen. The gap that was 0.6 of a second, now 1.6.
Yeah, that's suboptimal, as we say in the racing world, but you know, you hear from the pit wall, no option at this time. Carlos trying to plead, yeah, but it's costing me a lot. That doesn't change the options. Unfortunately, the engineers back on pit wall will be trying to look through all the live telemetry. These cars are beaming gigabytes of data back to the pit wall in real time. You have a team of engineers trying to decipher it.
Smells a lot like fuel in the car, guys.
Yeah, that's very concerning. That's something that has to be addressed.
What a shame for Carlos Sainz, but you've got to put safety first. I don't think he can continue to run like that if he's got a fear of fuel in the car, and that would be hugely disappointing for the driver who has been the lead Ferrari contender. He was really racing aggressively yesterday on his way to second place in the sprint, and yeah, disappointing for him if he has to hit earlier than he would want to, and I can tell you. Oh, spin there! Around goes Zhou Guanyu, and he was in a great position, running higher than he has done for a long time in Formula One, but he finds himself spinning at the first turn, and he is now the 19th place driver. We've seen so much action for every position so far this Grand Prix.
And so much action at turn 1 throughout this race weekend with that repave. You gain grip on line, but as soon as you're a car width or so wide of the line, the grip falls off dramatically compared to a seasoned surface, and you see how far away from the apex he is. Just...
Sorry, mate, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, just overcooked it. You overcooked it. You got out into the greasy part of the racetrack, especially in these hot conditions. 46 degrees, 46.7 is the track temp right now. So that far offline, I'm not surprised you found yourself in a position where you were spinning. It's just, it's so tough there. You've got to keep it in that very narrow grip window, the racing line right now on this newly paved track.
To clear up what we saw earlier on, Fernando Alonso did repass Liam Lawson after that moment. Sainz is being told to fix on the radio. He is adjusting things on the steering wheel to try and get that car back into a position where fundamentally he feels confident that he can attack and continue in this Grand Prix.
And he's managing to keep pace. You know, that gap hasn't really gone any bigger than when we first reported the issue. In fact, he's picked a couple tenths up back on Max Verstappen. So, you know, the crew giving him some information, an adjustment to make on the steering wheel. It's a very complicated piece of equipment, the steering wheel of a Formula One car. Many dials, switches, all sorts of adjustments that the driver can make. Probably about a half a dozen that the driver will use of their own accord and use regularly in a race, but there's hundreds of different functionalities. And so getting one call like that, that's probably not one he's used to doing. So maybe having to do a little extra thinking on the straightaway, figuring out which dial to put to which position to get the parameters of the engine sorted and back to a place where hopefully it's fixed itself.
Now, as you can see, seems better. Keep hanging there.
So whatever the issue was, it has, in the eyes of the engineers, sorted itself out. And has he got the power to roar up to the back of Max Verstappen, who is taking more points out of his championship rival as it stands? Charles Leclerc 3.8 seconds out front with the fastest lap of the race as well. Max Verstappen trying to win his first Grand Prix today since June after a contentious incident at the first turn. Lando Norris wasn't happy with it. No word about any of it from race control, apart from the incident we saw when Esteban Ocon was spun around. And then a few laps further on at this corner, Lewis Hamilton spinning at turn 19. We had a safety car restart. We've been racing ever since, and we're now on lap 12 of 56. Advantage Ferrari and Charles Leclerc. That gap is increasing.
You know, it's funny, it's not just the confidence that it looks like Max has from inside the race car. That's been prevalent and noticeable since FP1. It's been outside the race car as well. You know, Max doesn't like finishing second. And when he was second in qualifying yesterday after his potentially pole-setting lap was interrupted by Russell's accident, he still had this quiet confidence. He had a smile on his face when I spoke to him in the interviews, and he did really seem like he knew that they had something in hand for McLaren, for Ferrari, for anybody, as we see here. Liam Lawson, Fernando Alonso back at it again down into turn 12.
And the two that were arguing yesterday, continuing the conversation, this time on the racetrack, and Lawson powers ahead, not intimidated by a two-time world champion, and he's up to 11th place.
And it's not just a two-time world champion, it's Fernando Alonso. It's one of the most ruthless ones that's ever done it. He is so crafty, his racecraft is among the best in the sport. You don't get to however many hundreds of Grand Prix he has without learning a trick or two. Very cunning, and to be, I don't want to say outfoxed, that might be disrespectful to Alonso, but certainly having got the better of him for a driver and only his first couple Grand Prix is impressive.
Feedback on plan A, please.
Ambitious.
Ambitious, says Oscar Piastri. So it's lap 12 of 56. Charles Leclerc continues to lead nearly by 5 seconds. And then we can see Liam Lawson is the highest runner on the hard tyre. He's got past Fernando Alonso. The hard tyre, the more durable compound for those out there. Teams and drivers now beginning to converse about the right way to go when it comes to strategy. And the feedback, the debate, that's going to be absolutely vital. Calling it the right way today is the difference between the largest trophy and not standing on the podium.
And this is right in the beginning. It's the early part of the window, but it is the beginning of that first pit window for the drivers that started on the medium tires. So if you are struggling a little bit with this medium compound, you're starting to consider, okay, do we make that first stop now, bolt on the hards, satisfy the tire rule, and really get an assessment of how durable that tire is in comparison. But you see Liam Lawson on that hard tire passing a medium shod Fernando Alonso, so the hard seems to be holding on pretty well so far.
You mentioned the rule. Let's tell everyone the rule, because we have viewers who have been with us a long time and viewers who are just joining us wherever you're watching this one. Great to have your company. And you must run at least 2 of the 3 compounds brought to every single Grand Prix, and it can be any combination, but you must run 2. There's no mandatory stops, but you must run 2 compounds. Looks like George Russell's got a good opportunity to dive to the inside. Let's see if he can pull it off.
If you keep this gap to Verstappen, we are happy with plan A. Our baseline is still plan B.
Yeah, I want probably plan B or C.
Well, Charles Leclerc was explaining to the man that you just saw get past Valtteri Bottas. George Russell up to 14th, Bottas down to 15th. And in the press conference a couple of races ago, George Russell asked, how many letters do you have for your strategies? Charles Leclerc asking for B or C at this stage.
And so comfortably. You didn't hear any panic in his voice. He wasn't out of breath. He's working hard. He's 5.5 seconds ahead of Verstappen, opening that gap, but just very comfortable in that Ferrari. And I like how the team said, we're thinking probably plan A, maybe B. And he said, no, I want B or C. You guys are way off.
Let's get some intel on the situation at hand. Ruth Buscombe-Divey, after Max Verstappen's talked to us.
Max heads up, found a bit of an issue with the car this stint. Hopefully we'll sort it out at the stop. So just hang on in there the best you can this stint.
Okay, Ruth, which way would you be going? Which way do you think the main contenders at the front of the field are going?
Well, as we see there, the first pit stop done by Joe, he's coming out on the pit exit. It is that 2-stop window right now, and you can see all the drivers are talking, that everybody is talking, trying to understand where they are. They have to commit in the next 5 or so laps. Do you come in the 2-stop window, which for the guys at the front will be somewhere around that 15 to 18, maybe 19, 20, or do you hang on and try and get to lap 24? Right now, the degradation is just at the 2-stop window. It should be for a 2-stop, but remember, it has to be good on deg and good on wear, which we cannot see from the outside.
Thank you, Ruth. George Russell is being noted by race control for the incident involving Bottas and forcing another driver off the track. As you get that message, we saw him get past, and Russell gets past Franco Colapinto, and he is now up 7 places, having started this race from the pit lane. If he's penalised for forcing Valtteri off the road, though, it would be a 5-second penalty on the precedent that we saw yesterday. And race control deleted Valtteri Bottas's lap time for being all 4 wheels off the road. So Russell, having passed the Williams, removes the option of being able to give the place back to Valtteri. And I think he's staring at a 5-second penalty right now.
Yeah, that's the kind of blow you don't want to take at this stage of the Grand Prix. We watched Fernando Alonso Aston Martin sort of in no man's land this weekend. We saw him get into Q3, had some pace over a lap, but it hasn't really been the performance that they wanted to see. Meanwhile, up front, you've got Leclerc setting fastest laps of the race. He was 0.6 of a second faster than Verstappen on that last lap, even more over Carlos Sainz. So he is by far the quickest car on the racetrack, and you can't even just use clean air as the excuse anymore with a 6-second gap in front of him. Verstappen's air is just as clean as Leclerc's, but just does not have the pace. Now, we heard that there is an issue with the Red Bull that they hope to rectify at the pit stop. Not sure what they're going to change at the pit stop, but hopefully they change something and we can get the Red Bull back into the mix.
Last time around, Charles Leclerc 39.2. Max Verstappen did a 39.8. That is the difference at the moment. The 5-second penalty has been awarded to George Russell for forcing another driver, Valtteri Bottas to be exact, off the road. And so Russell will have 5 seconds added to his pit stop time. He's on the hard tyre. He has to come in and make that stop. They'll wait 5 seconds before they can service the car. It's over 5 seconds for Charles Leclerc out front. So, issue detected for Max Verstappen in second place. We heard that conversation on the radio. We've also heard Carlos Sainz in third with a problem. Needed steering wheel changes to negate that. Lando Norris not happy with the start of the Grand Prix and hasn't shown any pace on this medium tyre. Certainly not Ferrari race leading pace on the medium tyre, as we review the moment that got George Russell a 5-second penalty.
So late lunge, Valtteri gives him room, and then you just see that little bit of contact. He was trying to hold on the outside, which he has the right to do, and then if it wasn't for the contact, he might have been okay, but you saw the right rear get into the side of the Sauber, pushed him wide, and as George drove off, didn't think about giving the position back. That's where the penalty comes in, as now Bottas has done his first pit stop.
So Valtteri Bottas exiting, a driver who hasn't scored a point so far this year. And he scored points in every single season of his Formula One career so far.
So, George, we got a 5-second penalty for forcing Valtteri off the track.
What? You never know what George is going to say, but you always know it's going to be good value when he does.
But now he's got...
That was more tone, wasn't it? He's got Fernando Alonso ahead, doesn't feel he can make that move to the inside and get to the apex first at this point, but he's incredulous at the penalty.
Drivers usually are. They rarely take a penalty sitting down, even if they know they're technically in the wrong. That one, from inside the cockpit, I could see why there was maybe a bit of surprise from Russell's seat. It wasn't much. It wasn't an egregious offense. It was very marginal, certainly, but yeah, unfortunate. Now he's got the bit between his teeth. He knows he's got to try to make up as much of that time as possible.
Total joke, George, with the penalty. Total joke.
Toto just agreeing with George's assessment.
Yeah, that's more of a message for those who dished out the penalty than for George Russell. That's Toto Wolff deliberately voicing his opinion. You know, there was a time many years ago where you'd never hear the team principal and CEO of the Mercedes Formula One team on the radio. He pushes that button when he wants it committed to the broadcast, and yeah, unimpressed with the penalty dished out. Either way, George Russell's just got to get his head down now. Nothing he can do about that. That will be served at the stop. He's on the hard tyre at the moment. The drivers that have stopped so far, we've had so far Alex Albon in the pits and the two Saubers, Bottas, who's running ahead of Joe. Joe, who's had a spin at turn 1 earlier in the Grand Prix. And Ferrari find themselves with a 7.1 second lead. That's so important for them. And this was going to be a crucial test of their car, whether the upgrade had improved it. This is Sergio Perez to the inside of Yuki Tsunoda, and he is able to get past at last. He's been looking for that move for a while, and further back, George Russell's lining up Fernando Alonso, so a couple of changes for position into turn number 12, but this one's significant for the driver market, and it is Sergio Perez who finds himself in 8th position in the Red Bull. Yuki hasn't given this one up as well. A reminder that George Russell did get past Fernando Alonso. We'll try and show you the replay of that in a few moments, as Perez finally is able to stretch his legs away from the Japanese driver behind.
And as these two battle, it's just allowed Nico Hülkenberg to close right up to the back of Yuki Tsunoda. That's an important battle in the Constructors' Championship right there, as now we take a look back maybe at George Russell getting, yeah, here we go. George Russell on Fernando Alonso down into turn 12. Not a lot of defense there at all from Fernando. Fernando backing off early, letting him get in line.
Fernando opting out of that one as we come into the pit lane with Kevin Magnussen. High pressure stop that for Haas. They know there's a chance of more points on offer again today. They've come roaring back in the championship, level on points with RB or V-Carb, depending on the name you're using. The drivers and teams seem to use RB. They're officially V-Carb in the results, and they're up against Haas, both on track and in the Constructors' Championship.
And a great first stint from Kev. I mean, he held that place, was running great lap times, keeping it consistent. Same thing with Gasly. What an impressive run so far. Be interesting to see how quickly Perez can try to get up to the back of the Alpine. Clearly a huge car advantage for Checo. 3.5 seconds is the gap right now. Is a big defensive move here down into turn 12. Can Hulkenberg high-low him, try to get him into 13? It's going to be tight.
Oh, but he's going to have the advantage if he can just nose ahead. Now, he can't keep the wheel in when they went to the outside line. How about the up and under into 15? Will he be given the room? There is the example of what you have to do to defend that position. He's off the road and still keeping his foot in. Then it gets high speed, and he's got way too much experience to risk that one.
Oh, it would have been so tempting, though, to just get stuck in there. He had the inside line. He wasn't completely alongside, but certainly enough that Yuki couldn't just turn in as Yuki now dives into the pits. Crucial lap here now for Nico Hulkenberg. He needs to use that clean air, absolutely hammer down as quick of a lap on this tour as possible, with the expectation that he would be pitting next lap to cover.
So the order of the race is Charles Leclerc ahead of Max Verstappen, then it's Carlos Sainz ahead of Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri is in 5th, Perez is in 6th, Hulkenberg continues on that extra lap. It needed to be under 3 seconds for V-Carb, it is under 3 seconds for V-Carb. Disappointing stop for Pierre Gasly ahead though, and that has ruined what had been an exemplary day so far. That is going to put him under pressure later on in the race. He's lost 4 seconds there at least compared to where he wanted to be, but it's all about Hulkenberg's pace now.
Yeah, it's such a shame for Alpine. That was a crucial stop for them. They really needed to execute there, and unfortunately, look, 4 seconds, it's not going to push him out of the points, but it's definitely going to put him right back into the grasp of some of those cars he had a nice buffer to. Now he's going to have to really race, really get defensive, but hopefully the undercut side of it will cover off some of that against your Hulkenbergs, your Lawsons, and your Russells. But this man out front, absolutely no issue at all. Still half a second a lap faster than what Max Verstappen is managing in P2 on cruise control. We saw this incredible tire management out of the Ferraris in the sprint race yesterday, and they've just picked up where they've left off.
Charles Leclerc had only led 4 laps around this racetrack before today. He took the lead at turn 1. He has stayed there ever since after a safety car restart as well. We're looking visor cam at our race leader.
Just such a busy section. So much fun to ride on board with these Formula One drivers around that section of racetrack. You can see how bumpy it is, how much the head gets jostled. And you look at that steering wheel. I mean, there's just so much going on there, things that drivers have to manage throughout the course of a Grand Prix.
And he takes it to the back straight. And he would have been a bit miffed after yesterday's sprint race, because they knew they had good pace, but a great opportunistic move for Carlos Sainz to fight his way by. Sainz able to get up to 2nd place. Charles Leclerc showing what he can do today, crucially with that clear air in front of him. And he's making use of it on lap 20 of 56. The stops still to come for the leading contenders as we continue to see the drivers push on. This is Alex Albon up against Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen, who has made his stop, and Albon, who came in having had that contact at the start of the Grand Prix, meeting in the middle at the moment. Oscar Piastri only 3.6 seconds away from Lando Norris. Not a huge gap between those two. And Perez was only 3 seconds behind Pierre Gasly, who lost about, on average, 4 seconds for a normal stop when he visited the pit lane. So Perez is going to make use of that. You would expect the Red Bull to catch the Alpine anyway across the course of the race.
Tires still feel quite good, and the grinding's cleared a bit.
And it's crucial right now at this phase. We hear that radio from Piastri just saying the tires are hanging on for Magnussen to get around the Williams. He needs to be clicking off fast laps, trying to make that undercut work. And you can see where the undercut zone is sitting right now. Verstappen over Sainz.
But if you can sit within 2 seconds, you've got every opportunity at the stop, and Sainz will know. Sainz will know that that is the mark, and he's just maintaining. He's been hovering around that pace for a while now, as just hovering with a look to the inside for Haas, but still unable to make the move. And you've got Magnussen will be wanting to get on with it sooner rather than later here. You've got Kevin Magnussen, Alex Albon and Lance Stroll in your picture throughout the sweepers that begin this lap.
You know, at this stage, it's really not working out for Magnussen on the undercut because he got stuck in traffic. One of the big things that you look at when determining when you're going to pit is where you come out on the racetrack. You really do want clean air to be able to use those new tires. And right now, looking up against Perez, who was directly behind Magnussen on track, he's running around about a half second to 0.7 of a second faster than Magnussen is right now. So it's all sort of coming unraveled for the Haas.
George Russell making another position. He's able to get past Liam Lawson up to 8th position, and we knew that Carlos Sainz was going to be pulling the trigger, and he does so. Into the pits comes the Ferrari driver to say goodbye to the medium tyres. It was 2 seconds as he came in from the racetrack to the pit lane. Ferrari deliver a sub 3 second stop, and now it's all on the shoulders of the Spanish driver to bring these tyres in the way that Pirelli need you to, which is to take it slightly easy in the first couple of laps, keep Perez behind, and then go on the attack, trying to put that new rubber pressure on Max Verstappen.
And what's crucial here is he has 13 seconds of clean racetrack in front of him. It was a beautiful little gap in the line to go into right in front of Checo there, and now he's just got to open it up, try to get that lap time, but without abusing these tires. These are the hards. They're going to have the longest stint of the Grand Prix, so he can't be too greedy, but at the same time, he's got to push. He's got to make up some lap time if he's got any chance of getting around Verstappen.
More moves. This is crucial for Haas and Kevin Magnussen. Alex Albon was ahead, and that was off the road on the way into the corner, and as a result, there was no way by. Not at turn 12. Turn 15, different story, different traction, and 14th place for Kevin Magnussen.
It's amazing how slow that corner is and feels inside a Formula One car. You can just hear the engine note drop all the way down. It almost feels like it's going to stall as we see a noted incident there. That one between Albon and Magnussen is now big defensive move.
And looking for the inside, finding the inside, Franco Colapinto on the hard tyre, waiting for the last possible moment to lunge to the inside of Fernando Alonso. Alonso on the medium, Colapinto climbing to the point. We have drivers out of sequence, but that's another highlight moment for the driver who is just in his 4th start in Formula One when it comes to Grand Prix racing.
I got to think Fernando Alonso's getting tired of having these part-timers come up to him and race him so hard.
So Lando, from our side, we appear to have a lower deg than the 2 cars ahead, so we might just look to try and extend past them. From your side, how are the tyres? How's the pace?
Yeah, pace. I'm pacey right now. Have been for a while.
Pace 0, and when you consider the breath you're hearing in him, I'm assuming that's as quick as he's capable of going right now at this stage of the Grand Prix, and he is lapping about the same as Leclerc, and a good half second faster than Max Verstappen, so potentially an opportunity to move ahead there.
You're looking at Max Verstappen on the left-hand side of your picture. We're riding on board with the 3-time world champion, trying to claim his 4th title this season, would be 4 in a row. Let's hear from the race leader, though. There's a man calling the shots at Ferrari.
He's got 10 seconds in the bag. I don't think there's too much pressure either way. A lap here, a lap there. He's still in very good shape. The one we're looking at, though, is the lap time from Carlos Sainz compared to Verstappen. When Carlos crosses the line, we can get a better sense of what that first flyer is. We take a replay here. Again, this is Magnussen.
So this is a lap later, and Kevin Magnussen, having dispatched the Williams, is going to say goodbye to the Aston Martin at the same place. Magnussen coming in for that fresh rubber earlier on, up against drivers who are, in Stroll's case, staying out there for the duration of the Grand Prix. Magnussen now up to 13th position as we have a fastest lap of the race from Carlos Sainz, as you would expect, Our contenders at the front, he's gone to new rubber, he's making use of it. 1:38.731 for the Ferrari driver, who is racing himself into contention again.
It's almost, you know, you see that difference from Max Verstappen, half a second. I think it's actually even more than that over the last 2 laps, so it's definitely heading in Sainz's favor. I'm surprised Red Bull hasn't blinked yet and brought him in just to try to cover right now. With that clean air in front of him, he's eating into that about 1.5 second gap. And look how far he's pulled ahead of Perez, who's still going to be neck and neck with Magnussen if he were to pit right now. It's about 20 seconds that you lose in a green flag pit stop if everything goes according to plan. And right now, the gap between them is right about that. It's just about 18 seconds. So you can see here on the pit stop prediction, he is now past Verstappen, Sainz has. So Red Bull trying to maybe save their cars for late in the race. They said they had a problem. They want to come in and address it on the pit stop. But the longer he runs here, the shorter that final stint on the mediums can be, and hopefully the most tire life to go attack.
How many more laps can you do at this pace? Question.
I'm okay like this, but yeah, let's focus on lap C.
Charles Leclerc really wants plan C. So Carlos Sainz is within a pit stop. If Max Verstappen came in and changed tyres now, Sainz would be ahead. It would be a net Ferrari 1-2. Plan C, Ruth Buscombe-Davey. What does Charles Leclerc want in this Grand Prix?
I think he could quite fancy a one-stopper race, and he is hitting the right degradation to achieve that. He's matching the degradation that Verstappen got, 0.06 yesterday. So if all the engineers see that they think they're good on wear, right now it is possible, but there is quite a lot of flexibility between these leaders. Carlos has gone early and he's actually very fast. Looks like he could be a two-stop as we listen to what Max wants to say.
Left-hand side tyres are really bad now.
Okay, copy that, Max. Thank you.
So I would imagine that's him coming in. Now, on where you can get to the end from here on a hard, it's not about really in terms of the degradation. If you have a big tyre delta, you can overtake. We saw it last year with Charles Leclerc. He was able to make that one-stop work in terms of time, but got overtaken. It's going to be absolutely key as we get to the final end of the race, the last 10 laps, to see who's going to come out on top. In midfield, they're more going for the two-stop race, but that's because they have traffic and they're in a different game to these leaders. They have a lot more free air.
So the teams, the drivers, the information, all being absorbed. And you can see Max Verstappen is falling back into the clutches of Lando Norris, his rival for the World Championship. And that cannot be allowed to happen. They've eked this stint out as long as possible, but now the World Championship leader is into the pits for a high-pressure pit stop for the World Constructors Champions, who are second in the table at the moment. Looking for a stop. Gets him back out. Carlos Sainz is rounding the 20th and final corner of the racetrack. It's under 3 seconds, but it is surely going to be track position for the Scarlet Ferrari that goes past the start-finish line. And by going to the rubber earlier for this moment of the race, it's advantage Carlos, but they have covered off Lando Norris there. Are Red Bull looking at their main rival for the championship rather than the Ferraris, who have been sensationally fast all weekend long?
Sensationally fast and sensationally good on their tires, and that's what we're seeing here. You know, we're coming up close to the half distance of this race done on the softer and the less durable tires. We see a replay now. It's Kevin Magnussen down the inside of Esteban Ocon into turn 12. Fairly straightforward pass there as he moves into position 12. And now to make the hards last from here is pretty manageable. So Sainz with the advantage. It's only a 3-4 lap advantage in terms of tire life for Verstappen later in this race. I'm not sure that's going to be enough to make a difference with the pace that we've seen out of the Ferraris. So right now it's definitely looking like it's favoring the Scarlet cars.
Here is our race leader for a moment that could decide whether he's able to take his third race win of the season. Really pushing on his way into the pit lane, taking nothing for granted as his team goes to work.
You don't need to, though, when you've got a 10+ second gap and a nice, tidy stop, 2.5 seconds. One of the quickest ones on the afternoon so far. Man, when you're on, you're on. You know, right now the team's doing a great job from a strategy standpoint, from a pit stop standpoint. Obviously, Leclerc hitting every single mark he needs to on the racetrack. This group right now is just firing on all cylinders and really executing well so far.
Lando Norris has taken the lead on the racetrack. He still needs to come in and change tyres, as does his teammate Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc in a great position, currently finding himself in third. He's 6 seconds ahead of his teammate. We're about to go wheel to wheel at an enormously quick part of the circuit, with Alex Albon getting through, making the place and climbing up the order once again. This is really, really good racing through the field, and we can see it's not exactly what Gasly would want to be staring at as we come across the line. Perez is in the pits, so is Fernando Alonso. Alex Albon still going up against Lance Stroll, with Gasly with the Alpine watching in the background there, and now finally Stroll is able to get ahead up to 13th position, and Gasly's been treated to a great battle. Doesn't want to look at any of this. Driver who lost 4 seconds in the pit stop and should have been clear.
Yeah, it just puts him in this sort of situation. Like I said, you pit knowing where you're going to come out, providing the stop goes well, and when you lose a few seconds, it can throw you out in the middle of traffic. It just derails the whole strategy. So it's so disappointing for a car that had so much promise. The driver delivered beautifully in qualifying yesterday, but it's definitely an uphill battle after that first stop. And based on when he did stop, you got to think they're leaning more towards that 2 stop, maybe come in late for even a set of softs to try to make some passes done if you're going to have to make a second stop if he eats these hards out a little bit longer.
Pierre Gasly had his best start of the season today in 6th place. Any result inside the top 8 would be his best of the year so far, but he's finding himself moment behind Albon and Stroll and kicking up dust and dirt. And Albon does not want to give him the inside line. He will not give him the room on the outside of the corner. Gasly doesn't seem too interested in it, but surely he overtook the Williams with all 4 wheels off the road.
But interesting to see how this one's read. Doesn't seem to be keen to give it back on his own, as we see now Hulkenberg has come in, is running up inside the top 6. Hard tires go on. He'll be set for the duration. And it's been a nice little comeback drive from Nico so far today. Points absolutely on the board for both of the Haas cars, which would be huge for them in the constructors' battle right now.
Stroll has also come into the pits, part of this overtaking gaggle from before. Now you find yourself with Gasly past Albon. But did he do so legally? And now we've got Yuki Tsunoda, who's joined the battle as well. It's a slightly slow stop for Stroll. 4.7 seconds is not what he needed. Let's go back to Esteban Ocon. It was the driver who was finding himself. It's Pierre Gasly we're looking at. And he went the long way round and tried to improve up the order, getting past Alex Albon there. And that was for 13th place.
See anything noted yet from the FIA, so interesting that at least so far that one seems to have gone unnoticed. As Perez down on the inside, but can the Haas come back? That's Magnussen trying to keep that position.
Magnussen sees the Red Bull get through, up to 9th place for Sergio Perez. Colapinto has gone long in this race, so has Lawson, so has Russell, who started from the pit lane. The top 5, the 3 of the top 5, Leclerc, Sainz and Verstappen, have made their stops. The top 2 on your screen have yet to visit the pits. The incident involving Gasly and Albon has been noted for leaving the track and gaining an advantage.
More phase 1 brake release for turn 1. Turn 1, more phase 1 brake release.
I don't know what that means.
I was going to ask you, Hinch, whether you knew what it meant. Turns out Carlos doesn't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, there's clearly some code there, because phase 1, if you're being literal, the first phase of the brake zone, that's when you want to hit the pedal the hardest. That's when you're putting the most pressure into it. As the car's going the fastest, you've got the most downforce, you're kind of utilizing that, and then you tend to modulate off the brake pedal as the car slows and the speed goes down, the downforce comes off. So you can often talk about brake release through the last phase, you know, the third phase maybe of a brake zone, but that's got to be some sort of different structure that they're using to discuss the phases of braking. But even, I don't feel bad that I'm not sure what they mean, because look, Carlos didn't know what they mean either.
The black and white flag is being shown to Pierre Gasly for track limits. If he goes beyond one more time, it'll be a 5-second penalty. So he's had a slow stop in this Grand Prix, and now he's under pressure if he goes beyond the white lines of this circuit with all 4 wheels off the road. Would be a 5-second penalty added. Final warning for the French driver. One-time Grand Prix winner who was dreaming of his best result of the year when he started 6th on the grid today. You're looking at the driver 2nd in the World Championship battle. Before the stops, he was losing more points.
Okay, Lando, so for us, this is likely the Germany situation, but we don't want to pull the trigger too soon if we don't have to. Every lap is tyre delta.
So, the information on the radio, and Gasly and Albon at turn 15 under investigation for overtaking. And you can see there the gap that is currently 17 seconds between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. You're seeing that gap between the first place driver and the 5th place driver, but our 2 contenders for the title. At the moment, Verstappen is clinging on to track position. All the while, Norris being given the information by Will Joseph on the radio.
Yeah, we talked about that gap. You saw it on the screen there, about 20 seconds for a stop. Right now, the difference between Norris leading and Verstappen is about 16, so it's still advantage to Max, who so desperately wants to stay ahead of Norris, not let him take any more points out of that championship lead. So right now, after a promising qualifying, starting from pole, making it look like he could have another chunk of points go his way, Norris might find himself losing even more ground to Max after 2 points going Max's way yesterday in the sprint race.
We're on board with Charles Leclerc, who is the net race leader. He's made his stop. He has caught the 2nd place man, and he is within the pit stop margin of Lando Norris, who is out front. Charles Leclerc trying to claim another victory today after the hugely emotional wins in Monaco and then in Monza, trying to take his first victory around the circuit of the Americas, a Grand Prix of which he started on pole last year but wasn't able to hold the lead for long at all. It was Lando Norris who was leading at the start of that one last year. Max Verstappen came through the field from 6th on the grid to take another win. Did it for fun last year. It's been a totally different story in 2024. He's had to take the best of the Red Bull up against a resurgent Ferrari, a resurgent McLaren, in the best form they have been for a decade. They have taken the most podiums for a decade. It's their best season for a long time, since Lewis Hamilton used to drive for the team. Here's Charles Leclerc looking for a comfortable pass, drifting to the inside. No defense offered up by Oscar Piastri, who is uninterested in racing the man from Monaco.
Yeah, you're just going to lose more time than it's worth. You know, Piastri knows he still has to pit. He's not really racing Leclerc, so don't cost yourself any more time and put yourself in a position to be under pressure from your Russells, your Lawsons, your Colapintos, although they haven't stopped. It's more maybe the Perez group and back.
Well, the gap to Lando Norris and Max Verstappen is 15 seconds as Lando Norris corrects the car, slides his way into the pit lane. He will stop on lap 32, and he was starting to struggle on the medium tyre. There is a tyre offset for Lando Norris, but he will not gain track position over Max Verstappen. That 2.2 second stop is exactly what he needed, though. Everything is vital at this stage as Verstappen goes back past his rival for the title. They're 4th and 5th at the moment. Charles Leclerc returns to the race lead.
So now it's a 6-lap advantage tire-wise to Norris, and that's going to be what the McLaren team is hoping pays dividends later in this Grand Prix. You still are going to have to make these hards last a pretty long time. We haven't done a lot of laps on them in this sort of condition. It was a little bit cooler on Friday, which is the only time anyone really ran the hard tires. So your deg numbers could be a little bit off. Based on the drivers that haven't pitted yet that started on it, it's looking pretty solid. So I'm not sure a 6-lap advantage is going to be enough for Lando to now make up the 3-ish seconds it is. Or I guess, no, sorry, 6 seconds to Max plus execute a pass.
That's the task for him. Sainz is heading into turn 12. Then it's Max Verstappen in the braking zone. Then it's this man that we're looking at. There's the gap. Verstappen is rotating the car through turn number 12. This is 5th place Lando Norris. He's got to go to work. He's got to show more on the hard tyre than he was able to on the medium. The defining moment of this Grand Prix on the evidence so far seems to be turn 1 on lap 1, as Oscar Piastri, running in 2nd place, is called, like his teammate was 1 lap ago, to the pit. And Norris was beyond track limits at turn 12 last time around. Had that time deleted as his teammate comes into the pits on lap 33 of 56. And Charles Leclerc is the leader. In from 2nd comes Piastri, who will tumble to the bottom of this group. group being Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen and Norris, as his teammate is able to go through.
And you see on that track map, Russell coming out here. It's going to be tight between the two. This is key for Piastri. He's going to want to stay in front. Russell does still have to pit, but you don't want to get stuck behind a car that's running around on 33-lap-old hard tires. So they waited until the last possible moment. As we see, word from the FIA, Gasly will get a penalty, plus 5 seconds.
Yeah, Gasly penalised for going all 4 wheels off the road, beyond the white line when overtaking, and didn't seem interested at all in even thinking about giving it back. And I'm surprised the team were not on the radio telling him to do so. It's one of those across the course of a weekend where you start doubting your eyesight, because it seemed to be obvious on first glance that Gasly had gone all 4 wheels off the road and that it wouldn't be a legal pass. Alpine find themselves with a great opportunity today, but 5 seconds being added to his race time.
Just from bad to worse, you know, you have the bad pit stop, you have the penalty. It was, the only hope can be that it's not a flash in the pan and it's not an upgrade that's really suited specifically to this circuit, and with both cars having it in Mexico.
Okay, Lando, your tyre advantage on Verstappen is 6 laps, and on Sainz is 10 laps. Sainz had to push his quite hard to try and undercut.
Yeah, so that's useful information. Like we said, you've got to be so careful. You've got to balance how much life you take out of these Pirellis at the start of a stint, and that's something that Lando has become so good at. We've seen great examples of his control at the start of a stint, going all the way back to Imola earlier in the year, having that incredible pace advantage late in the race. He came up just about a second short there, but we've seen a few times where he's really kind of mastered how to take care of those tires over a stint.
It is a new fastest lap of the Grand Prix for Lando Norris, who is going in search of his championship rival. The gap maintained last time around at 6 seconds. You can see marginal difference, but it's still within 6 at the moment. And it's lap 33. Norris taking a tiny amount, needs more than that, needs a drop-off from the Red Bull ahead. Let's go to Ruth Buscombe-Davey for a review of all we've seen with the team's strategic choices.
Yeah, and it does seem like that initial safety car at the start of the race has done 2 things. One, it's kept the pack closer going into the pitting window, and secondly, it's given those tyres a really nice introduction to their stint, which I think has really helped them. All the teams were reacting live to the data that they were seeing and saying, actually, the deck is creeping down, we can just about make it. And again, if no one is boxing behind you, your window isn't open for you to pit, which pushing the window out. So now at the front, it is a tyre age delta game. Even with the deck we have right now, a 10 laps is about 6/10 of just tyre advantage. It's a huge difference, and it will come to play right now at the end of the race. And remember, this hard tyre, they don't have the reference on. Just like on the medium, they already had the numbers from yesterday. Today, this is new territory. So they're balancing, pushing and attacking.
Fastest lap of the race for Lando Norris, finds himself in 4th place. Ruth, would you rather have track position with Max Verstappen, or would you rather have the tyre offset with Lando Norris? I know we don't have a complete information for the McLaren on the hard tyre, but what does your gut tell you?
I think if I was Max, I'd be annoyed that I'm behind the Ferrari. I think that 3 laps isn't a lot. You know, there was not enough tyre delta, and now he's not been able to close. He trapped Sainz. You can see how big and powerful the free air effect is. I think it's going to be tough at this point for him to keep that McLaren behind, looking at the delta lap times, but he could be saving, and his lap times might change, and he'll start to push when Lando gets closer. Just have to wait and see.
Thank you, Ruth. It is lap 35 of 56. This is the US Grand Prix, and it is great to have your company. We've got Yuki Tsunoda with a 5-second time penalty for forcing another driver off the racetrack. I reckon when we come back next year, there's a high chance there's going to be a gravel trap at turn 12, because the drivers won't be delighted with this one. It is the best overtaking opportunity on the racetrack in the course of the Grand Prix. Turn 1's such a great option at the start of a race, but turn 12 and turn 15 have been our overtaking corners so far this weekend. Confirmation of Tsunoda's penalty. Trying to get back into the points. It's not been the easiest run for VCARB. No points for 5 rounds in a row. This is on board with Sergio Perez. So well supported around this circuit. That only increases next week at his home race in Mexico, and he is currently trying to get past Franco Colapinto, who's doing an enormously long stint on these hard tyres. Russell, Lawson and Colapinto have yet to make their stop as another fastest lap of the Grand Prix for Lando Norris, as we see Perez biding his time to make a pass that eventually it's going to be a simple one.
Yeah, one of 3 drivers up at the front here that haven't stopped yet, all doing these marathon stints on the hard tires to start. But yeah, I'll tell you who this is really working out for is George Russell. He's done a great job. He's up in 6th right now, starting from pit lane, 35 laps on those hards with a 20-second delta. He's going to come out around Kevin Magnussen, Nico Hülkenberg, somewhere just in and around the points, but he's going to have medium tires with less than 20 laps in the race to run. That's a massive tire advantage, and he'll be able to make some moves on some of these cars, as we see Fernando Alonso again in a scrap, this time with the Sauber.
Yeah, Valtteri Bottas offering the defense, not enough, and Bottas sees himself drop down to 15th position. Alonso improving to 14th, and that's the moment that got Yuki Tsunoda a penalty for forcing a driver off the road. The driver in question, Alex Albon.
It almost seems it's advantageous for a driver, if they're getting past on the inside of 12, to just sort of open your hands up and say, oh, he forced me off, give him a penalty. But no, there wasn't enough room, obviously, there, as we listen to Max.
Yeah, these tires is not good. I can't brake, I can't attack anything.
Max Verstappen on the radio. It looked for all the world in sprint qualifying in the sprint race that Red Bull would turn the page. But now, away from the medium tyre, on the hard tyre, that Red Bull is not suited to the Pirelli rubber that it is running, and Lando Norris on the last lap, 1 second faster.
And it was the same difference the lap before, so Lando just eating away at the advantage that Max has. And it's a bit surprising because the Red Bull was decently quick on that hard tire in FP1. But you got to think, that was right at the beginning of the weekend. It was the first tire they had on these cars when the track was green. There was no rubber down. Conditions were cooler. It is just a different scenario, but that's what this limited practice does. It really throws these teams for a loop, makes it harder to know, predict what's going to happen. As Liam Lawson now finally, after a incredibly long 37-lap stint into the pits.
The driver trying to stake his claim for a new contract in Formula One. He has this race and 5 others afterwards before the team will assess, and he comes out close to his teammate, who's locking up, maybe with a bit of surprise to see Liam Lawson out of the pits ahead of him. Lawson in 12th, a long stint on that hard tyre, now with the softer compound of the medium to attack, and Yuki Tsunoda, that is the worst case scenario for him, to see his teammate ahead with fresher tyres.
Yeah, exactly right, and you're not gonna, if you're the team, you're not gonna allow Yuki to have anything to do to get involved in this situation at all. Liam's got a chance now. He's got a lot of time to gain to get to the points. Gasly's just in front of him, but then it's 10 seconds up to Hülkenberg in P10 for that last point, as we see Checo here working hard on Franco Colapinto, who still has yet to pit. Him and Russell, the 2 holdouts so far. Looks like he's getting that one done with the tire advantage. No surprise, it looked pretty easy.
7th place for Sergio Perez, and Colapinto's mega stint continues as Perez will go chasing up the road. Russell still needs to stop, Colapinto still needs to stop. Magnussen continues to lead his teammate. That's how they finished in the sprint race. Here's Yuki.
How does this happen?
I told you it was worst case scenario. He is furious to see Liam Lawson ahead of him on the racetrack.
Yeah, he knows that in a lot of ways that's his competition for any shot at the Red Bull seat next to Max Verstappen. If it does open up next year, as of now, Sergio has a contract, so it's not really a conversation, but it's all quite fluid over there. But don't forget, he's got a penalty as well.
Tell me how this happened.
Yeah, Yuki, the overcut was more powerful than expected, and we picked up a 5 seconds penalty for forcing Albon off the track. We're still discussing.
Well, Lawson's the contender now for VCARB. They've got to forget all about that and hope that Lawson can go on the attack in the remaining laps. Driver elevated from reserve driver to replace 8-time Grand Prix winner Daniel Ricciardo, who departed in strange circumstances back in Singapore. It did take a point away from Lando Norris on his last lap. It appears his last lap in Formula One. That gap that was 6 seconds has come down to 5, to 4, to 3, and now it's 2 seconds between our two contenders at the front. They went wheel to wheel, turn 1, lap 1. Lando Norris has consistently eaten away at the gap, and he's hoping to reclaim the points that he lost yesterday if he's able to improve to the podium, a 3-point swing.
Yeah, recoup and then some, another 6/10 faster on that last lap. Now Lando's getting into that distance where you're starting to really feel the effects of the car in front, and that's when you have to rely even more on the tires, use more of that rubber and put more energy into them. So this is where you really got to be careful to not abuse them too much and really overheat them. Once you do, it's really hard to get them back.
Box, Kev, box. You must box now. Box, box.
Box, box.
That sounds like something mechanical on the Haas. Very big concern.
Yeah, tone of voice told you that that was not what they needed. 3 seconds. Kevin Magnussen drops out of the points. And now Hülkenberg, the lead contender for Haas, who would be equaling their best ever result around this circuit. But you've got to remember, Franco Colapinto still needs to stop. So does George Russell. And Hülkenberg will be finding himself with a big opportunity on the hard tyres. It's medium tyres for Magnussen, who was hurriedly called into the pits.
That was interesting. I wonder if it was maybe a puncture that they were seeing and one of the tires was losing some air, because that was very panicked.
Here's Liam Lawson, who's finding himself now in 10th position because he's got past Pierre Gasly, and the man who has 6 Grand Prix to shine in Formula One to try and stake his claim for a seat on the grid in 2025 improves to the point on those fresh medium tyres. The new fastest lap of the Grand Prix belongs to Charles Leclerc, who has a 6.7 second gap over his teammate. And Ferrari have only scored a 1-2 finish 3 times in the last 7 years. The last time they did it in the USA, the Michael Schumacher era, back in Indianapolis, back in 2006. It's been a while.
Been a minute. This is kind of working out well for Lawson with that emergency pit stop seemingly from Magnussen. That's now put him up into the top 10. Of course, this guy still had to stop, and now he does it. Colapinto in and out, 3.3, a little bit on the slower side, but still manageable. We'll see where he cycles out. It'll be behind Yuki Tsunoda.
Let's see where Colapinto is able to get out ahead, crucially out ahead of Kevin Magnussen, 12th position. Not a huge amount of time between Colapinto, Tsunoda and Gasly. And this is on board with Kevin Magnussen, who is looking to try and make his way by on lap 40 of 56. The Danish driver approaching the end of his Formula One career, we believe at the end of this season, and has had a great attacking weekend so far, placing in the top 10 all the way through the weekend. And he finds himself behind, though, the long one-stopping Colapinto.
Yeah, that's, again, a just miss for Magnussen. Obviously, that stop not planned, so you couldn't be entirely sure where you were coming out, but that's going to hurt him with any chance of trying to use those new mediums to get himself up into the points. This is going to be a fun little battle. We've seen how tough Colapinto is to pass. Outside's not going to get it done in turn 12.
There's an opportunity. George Russell, they're waiting 5 seconds. The penalty from earlier on for forcing Valtteri Bottas off the racetrack. Magnussen trying to go by at turn 15, clobbering the curb as he did so. And George Russell drops down behind Sergio Perez as Colapinto is still in 12th position. Magnussen unable to get by Russell on the exit of the pit lane, with Hülkenberg improving to what would be Haas's best ever result at their home race.
And with Lawson in the points, it's so crucial that Haas is able to score some of those points as well. Being in P7 to Lawson's P9 at the moment opens that advantage over V-Carb as we see this fight rage on into turn 1, and now a yellow flag. Is that Colapinto?
It is Yuki Tsunoda in the V-Carb who goes around. Meanwhile, Colapinto and Magnussen hardly separated at all. You can never doubt Kevin Magnussen's bravery. He will go for any sniff of a gap.
One of the toughest drivers to pass. His defensive technique, now a little bit infamous, but just as capable on the overtake as well. As Sainz clocks the fastest lap of the race so far, still running 6 seconds behind his teammate Leclerc, but Magnussen having to regroup here, not going to get it done into the S's, lost a bit of time through that fast section. Now he's out of DRS range, which is a huge disadvantage at this stage.
Colapinto bringing the tires in, medium compound. This is Yuki Tsunoda with a spin. The strategy had not worked out for him. He wasn't pleased with it on the radio. Around he goes, dropping positions, and then there was a lock-up for Colapinto that gave Magnussen the opportunity, and the Japanese driver rejoins. That was the lock-up for Colapinto as Yuki Tsunoda spun. Magnussen was deep as well. We nearly had 3 cars off at turn 1.
Well, that's just it. We saw the exact same thing with Joe earlier. When you're wide in turn 1, there's just no grip. And obviously Colapinto a bit distracted by the spinning V-carb. He went wide, and then it was just one of those kind of comedic situations where you're looking at the car in front more than the apex. Magnussen followed him, and you saw he almost lost it as well, just keeping it on track with a massive dose of opposite lock. But look now at this gap. Verstappen v Norris, it is down to under a second and a half. These hard tires really suiting the McLaren, and still plenty of racing left to go for that final spot on the podium.
Yesterday it was victory for Max Verstappen for the first time since Austria in the sprint. He is used to the task ahead of him in recent times, making sure that a third doesn't turn into a fourth. Norris desperate to get back ahead like he was in the opening 200 meters of the race before they got to the braking zone at turn number 1. The gap between the 2 Ferraris out front is 5.5 seconds. The bonus point for fastest lap currently belongs to Carlos Sainz. We're on board the contender for the title. Lando Norris trying to turn a possibility into more, into a real scrap, into a battle. He must believe that he's got to get past here. He knows he's got to take points out of Max Verstappen if he's going to make this a title battle all the way to the end of the year.
This has been such a successful strategy for McLaren, and for Lando specifically, doing that overcut, having that tire advantage late in the race. He's just gotten so good at managing these situations, and you love seeing it. You love seeing him on the attack, the confidence that he's got behind the wheel when he knows he's got that advantage and he's the driver in attack mode. I mean, we've seen how dominant he can be when he's running away with it out front, but I really like seeing Lando with the bit between his teeth, having to close that gap and make those overtakes happen. That said, trying to get it done against Max Verstappen is one of the hardest things to do. An absolute elbows out racer when it comes to wheel-to-wheel action.
But these two made contact in Austria earlier in the year. Since then, they have gone side by side on a couple of occasions. They both gave each other a wide berth at Silverstone. It was fair racing there. But for the 6th time this year, they shared the front row of the grid. There is room to dive to the apex first. Max Verstappen did so. He got in track position that has lasted for 44 laps of this Grand Prix. And as we now go on to lap 44 of 56, the gap comes down inside a second for the first time. DRS and a speed advantage in 2 parts of the racetrack for the first time for Lando Norris, who is trying to find a way by, to fight a way by, and to make sure that he's not losing points. He is in fact gaining 3 points over his rival for the title. That's what's at stake. The Ferraris have maintained the gap at 5.5 seconds, looking for their first 1-2 in the States since 2006. They have been mighty today, but this is all about the battle for the World Championship.
Through that DRS detection zone down into 11, definitely under that 1 second mark. We'll see the DRS flap open, the speed increase on the McLaren, but a great drive off of turn 11 for Max. But look at that closing rate. He's not going to be close enough this lap, but man, it is such a speed advantage when you've got that DRS flap open.
As we go in to turn 13, this is a role reversal from what we saw last year when Max Verstappen had to climb back through the field, having had his time deleted in qualifying. He came from 6th on the grid to win the Grand Prix. There were many out there today who fancied Verstappen to get the launch and to disappear, but it's the Ferraris who have had the package, had the pace, with both drivers. Charles Leclerc, who took the lead at turn 1 on lap 1 and has brought his teammate to the party as well. But when it comes to the trophy they care most about, the World Championship trophy, it is all about this battle. Now, 0.4 of a second between Verstappen, who hasn't had the pace on this hard tyre, and crucially, McLaren made the medium run longer, they get the fresher rubber, and the gap has come down from 6 seconds all the way to half a second as we make our way through on board with Lando Norris.
Norris has to stay close through that high-speed S section in the front part of the lap, because you need that gap to be certainly less than 0.8 when you get to turn 11. We saw that last lap. It's only just under that, and that's really where Verstappen has the advantage. Is he's a tiny bit wide in 11, little bit of oversteer on the exit, but that Red Bull is so quick through that fast section. Lando having to drive in the dirty air, doesn't have as much downforce. It's a bit of a struggle to close the gap enough to really be within striking distance by the end of this straight here.
And once again, turn 12, Max Verstappen comfortably ahead, not even a hint of a look for Lando Norris. I can tell you that George Russell has got past the Haas of Nico Hülkenberg, and the Mercedes driver is up to 7th position. He's 6 seconds away from Sergio Perez, running out of laps to close down that gap. And Russell does have the fastest lap point. He's taken that away from Carlos Sainz. Sainz, who is 5 seconds away from Charles Leclerc. And Hülkenberg still with that 8th place would be Haas's best ever result at their home race. Some more points for them, crucially outscoring VCarb, who they drew level with yesterday. But at the very front of the World Championship, it's the task that James Hinchcliffe described for you a couple of moments ago. In the fast stuff, where Max Verstappen has been mighty all the way through this weekend, where the dirty air is so intense for the McLaren behind, how close can Lando Norris stay?
At this stage of the race, with the position Max finds himself in, right? We've seen throughout the weekend that a lot of cars are very close in lap time, but they find it at different parts of the track. The McLaren very good in the medium speed corners, the Mercedes great in a straight line, the Red Bull key. Their advantage is in the high-speed section, and for where Max sits, if you want one part of the racetrack that you're strong to play a defensive move against Lando, it is right here.
0.7 of a second, Hinch, and it's really all on the line. The DRS is wide open for Norris. Is this the first opportunity he has for a hint of a look? Once again, not close enough.
Not close enough, but he is getting closer, so we're getting closer to him being able to pull that off. Meanwhile, further back, Colapinto got around Gasly for the final points paying position. He is now P10. But it's all about this battle here wide for Max Verstappen. He is struggling on these hard tires, just does not have the confidence that we saw out of him on the mediums yesterday in the sprint.
Well, Lando Norris is being measured, but he will know there are 10 laps to go, and he needs to take points out of his rival for the championship. There are 5 Grand Prix rounds remaining at the end of the race today. We do still have a sprint race in Brazil. We do still have a sprint race when it comes to Qatar as well. There are still opportunities to claim big points, but it's going to have to be a pass now for Norris if he's going to have a chance at the title. He can't afford to finish behind Max Verstappen, and this is the closest that he's been since lap number 1.
The closest that he's been out of turn 1, but that means you're closer through that high-speed section, and the closer you are, the more downforce you're going to lose. There's a careful balance on finding exactly where the pocket is to put that car to maintain the gap you need at this point, but he does look much closer as we get onto the brakes into 11. This could be it.
Lando Norris has a big opportunity here. He's currently losing points to Max Verstappen in the championship, looking to change all of that. The top 2 contenders for the championship of the world onto the back straight at COTA, looking for the move. The British driver trying to go past. How defensive will Max Verstappen go? How defensive Can Max Verstappen go as we go into the braking zone of turn number 2? Norris trying to go around the outside. Is the room? Look now, not from turn 12, but to turn 15. Is there a moment for the McLaren to use the traction? Trying the long way round, there will be no route through, but the up and under might produce itself. This is going to be so fast, side by side at speed. Verstappen's just got enough for the moment. Norris not able to force Verstappen off the racing line. He's still ahead, and this battle continues as we move to the next lap of the Grand Prix. And Norris got close, very close, but not close enough.
Not close enough, but man, was it close. He has such a pace advantage right now, but Verstappen absolutely millimeter perfect in where he's placing his car defensively. He knows how to do this. He is so crafty when it comes to these wheel-to-wheel battles. A very tough driver to pass, but Lando has a bit between his teeth. He's got the fresher tires, the softer tires. Every advantage on paper is, sorry, they're on the same tire. Every advantage on paper is headed his way. He just needs to line it up. As long as Max goes defensive into 12, Lando's best chance is to make him overshoot it aggressively. He's got to be so deep, but you know you don't want to hang it around the outside of Max because he will put you off if needed.
2 opportunities about to come the way of Lando Norris. First of all, turn 12, then the option into turn 15. How close can the McLaren man get on the brakes when it matters, when the World Championship is up for grabs here? Is there an opportunity this time? No. Is there a chance to force him off the racing line? Slightly deep for Verstappen, a little bit more speed through that corner for Lando Norris, but another opportunity goes by. Can he dive to the inside to try and get that opportunity? Opportunistic move at 15, not that time. Good lap for Max Verstappen. And every lap he can make Norris run in the dirty air will be damaging his tyres. We sweep our way through the final corners of this 3.4-mile circuit. It's 4.8 seconds for the Ferraris out front, first and second. These two separated by half a second across the line. Crucial laps on the board now. Norris goes again.
Lining him up again. He is oh so close. Big defensive move from Verstappen into 1. Is this going to allow Norris to get the drive off? Very hard to get it done into 3, lighting up the rear tires, leaving some skid marks.
It's close. It's on the edge. We aren't into the full brinkmanship yet, but Norris is darting all over the road. Every single time he deviates from the racing line, he is taking more out of the tyres though. The advantage, the offset that has brought him back to the Red Bull will fade away if he takes too much out of the Pirellis. Norris knows the pass has to come soon. Can he make use of this moment, the direction change at turn 11? The driver who took a superb victory when he was able to go past and leave Max Verstappen in the dust by 20 seconds in Singapore is trying to get past him now, under braking. There's no chance once again. Verstappen resists the pressure once more.
He's just quick enough in all the right spots of this racetrack to keep Norris at bay so far. They do have the lap car of Valtteri Bottas coming up. That could play into this a little bit if he doesn't get out of the way at the right position on the racetrack. But Max having that really wide line in turn 11, that's something we've seen here in the past used to great effect. I want to say it was Fernando Alonso was the first one that started really experimenting with those lines. We saw him do it famously in Brazil years ago as well. It just allows you to not have to put quite as much steering lock in. You can keep the minimum speed up, and it gives you a great shot off the corner, which is what Max needs to focus on right now.
Another chance. It's lap 50 of 56. We head to turn number 1. Lando Norris was thinking about that move to the inside, and he ducked back in. They both go past the Sauber. We sweep our way through these thrilling corners, a thrilling battle with Norris erring on the side of caution. If this was a move that he absolutely had to make in the last lap, there have been opportunities to throw one to the inside, but he knows he cannot afford damage that takes him out of this race. That point swing, like the last time they made contact, it was a 50-50 contact in Austria, but it was Verstappen who scored more points that day when Norris retired. He cannot afford to let that happen again. We are running out of races in the World Championship, and Hinch, we're running out of laps in the US Grand Prix.
That's not what Norris wants to see. You look at what the deployment level of the battery is right now, where everybody is sitting Norris having to be very strategic. Oh, a little bit of a lockup there on the outside front of Max Verstappen. Doesn't really hold him up, doesn't create an opportunity for Lando. But that's part of what these drivers are doing. You're having to be very strategic on how and when you charge your battery, how and when you deploy your battery. One driver trying to use it for an offensive move, one trying to use it in defense. There's so much strategy behind what the drivers are doing, how they position their car, where they focus their energy in terms of braking points and exits. You're not driving for lap time right now if you're Max Verstappen. You're driving to disrupt Lando Norris and to try to maximize exits out of these slow corners.
Last year for Max Verstappen, eat, sleep, win, repeat. This year for Max Verstappen, damage limitation all the way through. He hasn't won a race since the Spanish Grand Prix, but he's got a title advantage of 54 points over Lando Norris. He's trying to extend it further by 3 points, and this is more than just the numbers. This is momentum. This is winning a psychological battle that would be so important to him. The momentum of the McLaren has been interrupted. Is there a second wind for Lando Norris to force his way by?
He's about a 1/10.5 closer out of turn 9. That's key. It doesn't need to be much. Now just 3/10 on the brakes. This is going to be the closest we've seen him.
Here we go. This is it for Lando Norris. It's a wide line that gives initial momentum for Max Verstappen, but he is gaining and gaining and gaining. How brave can he be in the braking zone of turn 12? This is the best opportunity he's had since lap number 1 to take the place. He puts the car on the outside line, tries to duck back through. It's not done yet. Verstappen knew it, held on to the inside line, and now off the racing line that he wants to be. There's an opportunity. The two contenders again, separated by hardly anything. Traction race could favor the McLaren. Still, it's side by side or very close to it, but still, it's Verstappen ahead with 5 laps to go in the US Grand Prix.
10 out of 10 pressure on Max Verstappen right now, and so far 10 out of 10 on execution. He's not made a mistake, not one wheel wrong to give Lando the opportunity to make that move. Lando doing everything he can, but Max doing everything he needs to. Does Lando have a shot here into 1? Defense for Max, blocking a little bit.
Big defense from Max Verstappen, and he knows that he's having to use more of the tyre than he wants to, more of the road than he wants to. It is hard to gain momentum through these corners. Look at the sweep of direction change all the time. The following car losing out as a result, and Norris drops back to 0.6 of a second. There are cars ahead on the racetrack, not part of this battle, but Albon and Stroll are not too far away. If Max Verstappen can get within the DRS, that will help him defend as well. But through the first sector we go, into turn 11, and Norris is close once again.
Closer by a long shot. That was a great run off of 11. It's so tempting as a driver to get to the throttle too soon, light up the rear tires, but he's got it now.
Max Verstappen on the defensive, Lando Norris on the attack, Lando Norris going through on the brakes, or can Verstappen hang on to it? He keeps his foot in, they both go off the road. Norris moves ahead for the first time since lap number 1, but he did so with all 4 wheels off the road. That one surely will not count. He will surely have to give the place back.
Is the argument that Max forced him off the road though?
Overtook me outside the track.
Very matter of fact from Verstappen. I'm sure Lando's going to say, hey, he forced me off the track. We've seen both of those called already. It'll be interesting to see which way the FIA looks at this and the stewards want to address it.
I can't imagine McLaren will let the risk of a penalty hang over Lando Norris's head.
I think goes ahead at the apex. Let me know if you think otherwise.
They're still defending.
I think you were ahead at apex.
McLaren are going to risk the penalty. They're still attacking each other. McLaren are risking a 5-second penalty. They've elected to keep track position. Every single time we've seen a driver off the road like that, all the way through this Grand Prix, and this weekend it's resulted in a drop, but Norris gets by.
He's also risking a blocking penalty.
He needs to give it back.
That was a late move into turn 1, a late defensive move. Max had already started to pull out, I think, before we had that fade to the left from Verstappen, but let's take a look back at the turn 12 situation.
Did Lando Norris get ahead on the braking zone? Was he forced off the road?
No and yes. He was definitely not ahead at the apex, but I mean, with where Max's car was, he had really no chance but to go wide. Whether or not it's worth just taking that risk, this is tense. This is tense with 3 laps to go. If that judgment comes from the stewards, that's going to be devastating for Lando.
Lando Norris had an opportunity. The stewards have told us Norris and Verstappen have been noted.
We are on it, Max, we know. And we've also seen the moving under braking at 1.
Yeah, that's the other one that I'm curious about. I'd love to see that again, just because it really did look like Max moved first. And all the while, we've been ignoring the dominant performance from the Ferraris up front. Charles Leclerc has led from the get-go, just executing a perfect, quiet race up front.
The soothing sound of a V6 turbocharged engine for the race leader, Charles Leclerc, whilst we've watched a thrilling battle between Norris and Verstappen. We're also watching Perez and Russell. Here it is. Here it is. George Russell has hammered into Perez's advantage on that medium tyre. We're going to cover off all the drama of the World Championship battle, and it is now an investigation. It is now an investigation from race control about potentially giving Lando Norris a penalty for overtaking off the racetrack. And this one really does feel defining. Meanwhile, George Russell from the pit lane aiming for P6.
The stewards are looking at it, Max.
All right, Papaya rules, I think, need to come into play here, because Piastri, if he does get a penalty, Norris, Piastri's sitting just under 5 seconds behind. You're going to need him to back off, so that way it's only the one position that he loses.
We go on board with Lando Norris. Had an opportunity, thought about the inside line. There was a Red Bull in the way, laid on the brakes. You knew Verstappen was going to go as deep as possible. And leaving the track and getting an advantage is under investigation for that moment. And it is a time... Norris is being pinged for track limits as well. So there will be a question. There will be a question about why McLaren felt the need to take that risk. They could have swapped positions immediately. It's a 2-second gap between Verstappen and Norris now.
So our opinion is you were ahead at Apex, both cars went off track.
Yeah, he also went off, so it was clear.
I half agree, both cars went off. I'm not sure what camera angle they think that he was ahead at the apex. Max did a great job of rolling off the brakes and making sure his front axle was ahead right at the center of the corner from the camera angle that we saw, but it is close, there's no doubt about it. Fastest lap getting knocked out there by Esteban Ocon on the soft tires. It was held by Colapinto until just a minute ago.
A race that has come alive at the end. And we see George Russell attacking Sergio Perez. Piastri is in 5th. Verstappen finds himself in 4th. Norris P3 on the road at the moment.
Also, Max, Lando has exceeded his track limits, expecting a penalty for that alone, so flat out.
They're making sure that he doesn't lose 5 seconds here. Could potentially be 2 penalties for Lando Norris. McLaren did not tell their driver to give the place back. It is lap 55 of 56. It's a Ferrari 1-2. Norris has track position, but investigations hovering over his head. Verstappen is in 4th, but will expect a penalty for his title rival ahead. Piastri has been 5th throughout the Grand Prix today. Perez finds himself under pressure. He's got great support in this crowd as the Scarlet Ferrari of Charles Leclerc goes over the line to start the final 3.4 miles of the Circuit of the Americas. Further back, we're looking at Russell and Perez at the Mercedes, trying to go past the Red Bull to power past from the pit lane to 6th position, and that is a fine drive from George Russell, who gets ahead. 8th place will be the best that Haas have ever scored at their home Grand Prix. 9th place will be terrific stuff for Liam Lawson. And how about this from Franco Colapinto, occupying another points-paying position.
And Lando, so we've had our 3rd strike track limits, which I know you'll know, so no more track limits, no more.
Yeah, I don't have a black and white flag for Lando Norris being issued, so I'm not sure why Red Bull were expecting the penalty. There can be a delay on those things. My word, this race came alive at the end. But out front, since lap 1, at turn 1, Charles Leclerc has taken the lead, and he has used that Ferrari. He is attacking the final corners around this racetrack. It will only be his 8th Grand Prix victory. in Formula One. Lando Norris has a penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. He is 3.3 seconds ahead of Verstappen. It will not be enough. It was all about Max with the sprint. Lando took the pole. Lando's got a penalty. Carlos was the lead Ferrari on the grid. But Sunday is all about Charles. Another masterclass from Ferrari's favourite son. Charles Leclerc wins the US Grand Prix. It will be a Ferrari 1-2 thanks to Carlos Sainz. Ferrari's first 1-2 in the US since 2006. Third on the road, but with a penalty applied, it will be fourth position for Lando Norris. Max Verstappen takes points out of his title rival. The swing goes the other way. Verstappen stays ahead on the timing page. Norris pushed for all he's worth. He missed out by 9/10 of a second. Here's the winner.
And that's my boy. Another win.
Let's go. Come on. Mega.
And breathe after an incredibly intense US Grand Prix at the finish. Lando Norris is fourth in the classification. Piastri is fifth. Russell, Perez, Hülkenberg, Lawson and Colapinto will be your point scorers. And the question that hung in the air was, would there be a penalty? There was. And the question then evolves into, why did McLaren take that risk?
That's just it. I mean, the camera angle that we saw, it was pretty clear Max was ahead. And as you mentioned, any car that had done that so far in this Grand Prix had received the penalty.
I guess I got a 5-second penalty.
Yeah, they gave you 5 seconds just at the end there for leaving the track, gaining an advantage. Not sure why.
Oh yeah, well then I should have just gone back behind him, shouldn't I?
You either should have gone back behind him or you should have done it 3 laps sooner and given yourself enough time to open up a 5-second window.
So black and white flag has now been issued for Lando Norris. I did say that these things take their time, and that's been issued. If he's gone over again, it will be another 5 seconds, and that would drop him down. George Russell has been issued with a black and white flag for track limits, and it is Charles Leclerc's day. A end of the Grand Prix occupied by the battle for the title.
Well, mate, you drove hard for that. You drove hard for that. We weren't as competitive as we should have been in the second stint, but you deserve that podium today.
Ah, my God, that was a hard race. Yeah, I tried everything with the defending. At least that was fun. It's just a bit weird that you can overtake outside the track.
Well, you can't. And the FIA put that right, so there you go.
It is tough to overstate how challenging it is in that position as a driver. You're driving a Formula One car on the absolute limit. Clearly, it's not handling as well as Max would have liked, and you still have to keep one eye behind you. You're trying to almost drive Lando's car, trying to make sure you're positioning yours to never give him a sniff of an opportunity. It is exhausting from behind the wheel, and you can hear it. Compared to the wins where he's driving off into the distance, Max sounds definitely a little bit more spent after that one. And this driver here did everything he could and was so close to pulling it off and getting a few more points in the championship.
Driver of the day is the race winner. We didn't see as much of Charles Leclerc as we did in Monza, as we did in Monaco. But he started in fourth. He took the lead by the time he got to turn 2, and he stayed there for the rest of the Grand Prix. He has won just his 8th Grand Prix victory and his 3rd of the season. Monaco and Monza have company for the first time in his career. Charles Leclerc is the winner in Austin, and that feels like a huge moment for Ferrari, who didn't bring updates to this Grand Prix but have still taken a 1-2. Leclerc and Sainz separated by 8.5 seconds at the finish, and the crucial moment of Max Verstappen extending his lead in the World Championship to 57. It's all about this man out front, though. Charles Leclerc into the arms of his team. A Grand Prix winner for the 3rd time this season. Such emotional moments for team and driver. The season of home victories scored at Monaco and Monza, and now it's a hug from the boss. He delivered, and Ferrari looked good every single time they rolled out of the box from FP1. Had a chance, second place for Sainz in the sprint, and victory in the Grand Prix thanks to this man.
The irony that the one front-running team that didn't bring upgrades ended up walking away with it. I mean, it was an impressive performance from both cars in the sprint race. It was an impressive performance from both cars in the Grand Prix, especially considering the issues that we heard for Carlos Sainz early on. They were able to rectify it somehow. Some change on the steering wheel took care of that problem, and he drove a great recovery race to get himself P2.
Max Verstappen not with the pace today, but overall with an advantage in the championship that has increased, having been whittled away. As we see Carlos Sainz celebrating, he said he wanted a return to the podium. He would have wanted the chance to win. He was the lead Ferrari on the grid, but Sainz is back on the rostrum for the first time since the Austrian Grand Prix, which I feel we've mentioned a lot this weekend. But he's back up there, second place as well for him, and a fine result, all things considered. That start was defining.
It really was. I mean, we're kind of used to, in Grand Prix racing, the first corner settling things. That's not been the case in the second half of 2024, and even after he took the lead with Norris and Verstappen going wide there in turn one, I wasn't convinced that was the end of it. I wasn't convinced it was game over, but we did see how strong they were in the sprint race, and even with everybody having the opportunity to change their cars outside of Parc Fermé rules, to try to close that gap, try to improve that deficit on tire degradation, nobody could touch the Scarlet Ferraris. Very, very impressive team effort, very impressive drive from both guys.
It really was. It's great to call the race with your hinch. It's the first opportunity that we've had to do that since we last raced in the US back in Miami. It was Lando Norris's day back in May, but it is Charles Leclerc who will be speaking to Jenson Button as the winner, along with the top three.
Max, what a fight you had there with Lando, your championship rider here in 2024. Can you give us a bit more information of how it was for you?
Yeah, for me, of course, it was quite a difficult race. I never really had the pace to attack, so a bit different compared to yesterday. Yeah, just understeering a lot, struggling on the braking. So that made also the defending quite difficult, because every time if someone wanted to go for a move, I couldn't really brake that late. But yeah, it was a tough battle. Tried everything I could, of course, to keep him behind. And of course, at the end, yeah, to be on the podium is still, I think, for us a great result.
I think everyone's going to ask you how it was with Lando into turn 12 at the end of the back straight. Obviously, he ran wide, made the move, but it looked like you also ran off the circuit a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I have my opinion, but I don't need to say it here. I'll let the stewards do their thing. And yeah, for us, it was, again, a race that we learned a lot, and we'll just analyze that.
Well done.
The celebrations continue down in Parc Fermé. Well, they might.
Hey, Carlos. Wow. I mean, you've had one pretty awesome weekend in terms of, we saw you fighting yesterday in the sprint race. You had the bit between your teeth. It's your first podium in eight races, but there must be a little bit of disappointment there, knowing that you could have had that win.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, first of all, congratulations to the whole team, to Charles, for an amazing result, a result that puts us exactly where we want to in the fight for the constructors now. So extremely happy for everyone in Ferrari right now. At the same time, obviously, I knew a lot of the race was going to be decided at the start. There I knew Lando and Max were going to go hard at it into turn one, and unfortunately I got the worst of it, and I couldn't get that lead. And yeah, even though the pace from then on was really good, and I was all weekend really fast, track position is key, and I had to settle for P2, which anyway was a good race.
There's obviously a shift in the performance of the Ferrari this year. How is it to drive? And it seems that you guys are really good on tires now, tire management.
Yeah, it's definitely the strength of the car this year. How long we can go on stints and how little deck we have is something that I really enjoy, and something that has made me enjoy racing a lot more this year than what I did last year. Last year we spent all of the races defending, losing position. This year it looks like we just can go on attack mode, don't think too much about tires, and just push and overtake, which is fun, no? And enjoying it a lot, and I hope it stays like that until the end of the year.
Congrats, Carlos.
Thank you.
Now, you put on a clinic today. That was an amazing victory, Charles. You must feel very proud.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very, very happy. I mean, it hasn't been an easy weekend until now. I've been struggling a little bit with the feeling with the car, but I had the confidence that in the race the feeling was better, and it was the case. So we've seen it yesterday in the sprint race. We were a bit not scared, but we thought that the others will improve a lot more today, but we still had the upper hand. So really happy with today. 1-2 for the team. We couldn't have dreamed for better.
Talk to us about turn one, the start of the race.
Well, it was a pretty good turn one. That's exactly what I wanted to do, and we've had a really good launch. I knew that it was going to be very tight into turn one. Yesterday, I was a little bit the victim of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Today, I gained from it, and that obviously helped quite a lot our first stint, because we had a mega pace, and then in the second stint, it was all about managing behind. But we did a great job. I mean, the pace of the car today and this weekend overall was really, really good in the race. And that's mostly thanks to the engineers. They've been working like crazy in the last few months to bring the upgrades that we've had in Singapore and in the last few races, and it seems to be paying off. So yeah, the whole team is working super well. Pit stops were really good. Everything worked out well, so really, really happy.
Yeah, it's been 18 years, would you believe, since Ferrari have had a 1-2 here in the US, so you must be very proud of the whole team.
Yeah, very, very happy, and now we are still targeting the title. It's a long way to go, but it's a good start to this triple header.
Great win. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Charles Leclerc can call himself an 8-time Grand Prix winner. He is the man on top in Austin. He has won the US Grand Prix for the first time in his Formula One career. And this is the moment that he converted a dominant drive into a victorious performance. Italian cheers for the man from Monaco. Monza, Monaco, and now the Circuit of the Americas. Fourth to first by the end of 56 unopposed laps for Charles Leclerc, the man on top. Once more, he brought his teammate for company with Carlos Sainz, Max Verstappen, crucially in the World Championship in third. Cool down room time.
Where did he get you?
12.
And then you stayed within 5?
Well, we were just fighting, so you know, he got me in 12 outside the track limits because we both went wide. And then I think that was his last strike with the track limits, so he got a 5-second penalty, and then
he stayed ahead.
Yeah, and then
he pulled away or no?
4 seconds, so like 4.1.
You were pushing.
I was pushing flat out, and then I had traffic in the last lap in this sector. So it's quite difficult. Yeah. We're not so fast today. Carlos, was it you in turn 9 that went over like a curb? There was like a lot of stuff that came flying. I don't know.
One lap, no?
Yeah.
I think it was a gust of wind because I saw the same.
Yeah.
This is the battle?
Yeah, we had a few laps in a row.
This is a good track for racing, eh?
Yeah, because you have a lot of opportunities to go side by side. and you decide either you go inside or.
Oh.
So here he was already in front.
The hard were a lot more difficult than the medium, for us at least.
Yeah.
I destroyed my mediums behind Max.
But when you were pushing the first few laps.
Turn 6, I was destroying it.
Well, a very happy podium, a return to the rostrum for the first time since the Austrian Grand Prix in June for Carlos Sainz in the Grand Prix format, having finished second in the sprint yesterday. Max Verstappen taking more points out of Lando Norris. We started the weekend, 52 points between the two drivers in the battle for the World Championship. It has now extended once again. 2 points yesterday, 3 points gained today in the Grand Prix format after a time penalty for Lando Norris dropped him to 4th position. And the crowds have poured onto the circuit. Have to say a big thank you to all the circuit staff here who make this a great occasion, are so friendly and welcoming and take great pride in welcoming F1 to the city of Austin. Once again, it's been a superb event. And once again, it's been a Grand Prix that maybe was difficult to predict at the start of the day, that has come out with a result that not many would have called. 4th on the grid to the win for Charles Leclerc, but first of all, the man who's getting closer to that 4th championship of the world, Max Verstappen in 3rd. In 2nd place, Carlos Sainz finds himself part of a Ferrari 1-2, which is always a special occasion. Monaco, Monza, and now Austin for our winner, Charles Leclerc.
Siamo pronti alla morte, siamo pronti alla morte. La morte, siamo pronti alla morte, Italia!
Ring the bells in Maranello. Ferrari have won another Grand Prix, their 4th of the season. Carlos Sainz in Australia, Charles Leclerc in Monaco, in Italy, and now taking the trophy in the US Grand Prix. Acclaimed by the crowd. Grand Prix victory number 8 for Charles Leclerc, his 3rd of the season as well. and the gold medal to go with it as the fireworks go off. 2 minutes to 4 in the afternoon local time.
Complimented to Scuderia Ferrari on their 1-2. They're represented by race strategist Ravin Jain.
There's been plenty of chat about Ferrari strategy through the years, but Ravin Jain is the man lifting the trophy aloft. He is celebrating. We're used to seeing these for the pole position trophies, but it's second position for Carlos Sainz, part of a Ferrari 1-2. And they have plenty to celebrate. Only their third 1-2 finish of the decade. Max Verstappen extending his advantage in the Formula One World Championship. Was that a pivotal and defining battle with Lando Norris, with just 5 Grand Prix rounds to go for Formula One in 2024. Well, when you finish 1-2 and it's a dominant drive, the ticker tape parade seems appropriate. It's been a weekend of great action all the way through in the sprint in the Grand Prix. On the way to turn number 1, the deciding factor. As Max and Lando went wheel to wheel, Charles Leclerc, who had got the jump on Carlos Sainz, moved past them both. They continued to squabble all the way to the end. On the last lap, the penalty issued to Lando Norris that took him off this podium and elongated Max Verstappen's championship lead. But it's Ferrari's day in the sun in Austin. They have delivered under the pressure, and for all the upgrades chat that we enjoy, it's the car that brought nothing that claims the 1-2 and celebrates it. Their first of the season, and a moment to drink in for Charles Leclerc, who claims 3 Grand Prix wins in a season. The man who celebrated his 27th birthday in the week is our victor. Once again, the driver who started on pole was not able to convert. That's only happened 2 times in the last 11 races now. It's a Ferrari 1-2 with Charles Leclerc ahead of Carlos Sainz. Max Verstappen finding himself in third after a 5-second penalty for Lando Norris dropped him off the podium after overtaking off the road. 25 points for Charles Leclerc, his 8th Grand Prix victory in Formula One, a Ferrari 1-2 in the US for the first time since 2006. Max Verstappen elongating that championship lead. Lando Norris with the penalty dropped him down to 4th place. Piastri, Russell, Perez, Hülkenberg, Lawson and Colapinto are our point scorers. Lawson and Colapinto doing their future employment prospects a world of good. Kevin Magnussen was hurriedly called into the pit. He finished in 11th. Gasly was in 12th. And then it was Alonso, Tsunoda, Stroll, Albon, Bottas, Ocon, Zhou Guanyu, and the only retirement, Lewis Hamilton, who spun out of the race at turn 19. It was a great battle between the top 2 in the World Championship, but it was resolved in Max Verstappen's favour. 354 points to his name, extending that advantage over Lando Norris, who's on 297. Charles Leclerc finds himself in third, then it's Piastri, Sainz, Hamilton, Russell, Perez, Alonso and Hülkenberg, who again finds himself in the points. Then it's Stroll, Tsunoda, Albon, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Gasly and Behrman. Upper place goes Franco Colapinto, now with 5 points in 4 Grand Prix starts. Esteban Ocon has 5. Liam Lawson finds himself on the board in F1 2024. And in the Constructors' Championship of the World, it is still McLaren out front, 40 points ahead of Red Bull Racing, with Ferrari closing in third, 496 as the battle between the top 3 continues. And then it's Mercedes, Aston Martin, Haas now fully in 6th place ahead of RB, Williams with points again, Alpine in 9th, and still nothing on the board for Sauber. Well, my thanks to Ruth Buscombe-Davey and to James Hinchcliffe for all of their insights across the Grand Prix and the weekend. We saw a great battle between Norris and Verstappen, but it's Ferrari's day in Austin. Charles Leclerc is the winner. We'll see you next week when F1 returns.